we mash up the playoffs in baseball and basketball, and mash is the key word as we take a look at the Yankees and an offensive assault in the baseball playoffs. Hello and welcome to AAi, the podcast about analytics and sports. We have half of the AA. Ari Kaplan is with us. He's our global AI evangelist from Chicago. Hello, Ari.
Hey, Phil. Hey, listeners.
Usually would say hi to Andrew at about right now. It's awkward to not say hi to him, but Andrew is taking the week off. He'll be back with us next week. Ari, I said mash, and man, the Yankees, let's count the ways here. Yankees have now hit 11 home runs and 31 runs in their first three playoff games. That's the most homers and runs scored in a three-game span in playoff history. And then Grand Slam, third team to have back-to-back Grand Slams, back-to-back games, the only team to do it in the American League. And what's amazing is they're doing it against the teams with the best two ERA, best two pitching staffs in the league from the stats this past year. You have to give the Yankees credit as we transition from the wild card into the second round. Boy, they put on an offensive show. They are healthy and they are mashing.
And home runs are, one of the many ways to win a ball game. But when you hit 11 in three playoff games, that's pretty unstoppable. And as you're saying, against really good pitching, this is not just good pitching, but pitching that is honed in and ready for the Yankees. So imagine, as the series goes on, and they face a number 4 or 5 starter or some of the relievers, it's going to be very interesting.
It wasn't that long ago, about 3 weeks left in the regular season of the 60-game sprint, that we were thinking the Yankees were on the verge of falling out of the playoff race. Then they started getting healthy, and now really modeling from the season does not do them justice right now. They are beastly after roughing up Cleveland and then doing the same last night in San Diego at a pitcher's park.
Yeah, and modeling of seasons, number one, they're usually longer. And number two, in September, you typically have September call-ups or your roster's expanded. So kind of like things change since you're facing different levels of competition. But in this case, shortened season, you would think things have momentum and translate well, health-wise and others, into the playoffs.
All right, the other 3 series that we have, I'm going to give you the series. You just give me a quick thought about it, all right? Astros and A's in Dodger Stadium.
Animosity continues.
First thought, right there, you bet. All right, National League. Miami and the Braves in Houston with that short left field porch. What do you got on the Braves and Marlins?
Yeah, both great teams. The Braves, as we were just watching, won the second game. So I normally would say, be lookout for Miami. They have that bottom feeder T-shirt since they were counted out, huge odds to not, to even make the playoffs. But they were underdogs in 2003 and 97. Really any team, the Nationals last year, can never be underdogs. Every team, has a, some core of great players. But yes.
And then coming up, Game 1, Dodgers and Padres playing in the Rangers' new park. What's your feel for that series?
Yeah, looking at all the playoff teams of the 16, arguably the Dodgers and Padres, are 2 of the best, if not the 2 best, especially given late, in-season and late-season moves by the Padres. So that's going to be a phenomenal season, series. Each team has, reasons to be very successful. And I have friends in ownership and front office of both teams, so it's kind of hard. But, personally, my lifelong mentor, Fred Claire, was the GM the last time the Dodgers won the World Series. So I would love to see him stay, be alive when they, if they win it again. But, the Padres, great organization. They've done a lot of things positively that, it's good to root for them as well.
So now we have the 60-game sprint is down to, at this point, an 11-win tournament, right? Need to win 3 of the best of 3, and then 4 of the best of 7, and you get a World Series championship. And we're just getting warmed up. All right. NBA, 1 game is a cautionary tale for the NBA playoffs. Worst viewership in 40 years. 4.5 million viewers, down 44% from last year. If you're an NBA executive, what jumps out to you here, Ari?
You got to reach out. You got to fix that. That is such a tremendous drop. Comparably, there are other sports that are doing well, that are holding, if not increasing. So it's down while others, are holding steady in some cases. So you're going to lose fans. And it's especially tough since you have, like a LeBron James, who's like a superstar among all sports. And if that's not drawing, combined with these playoffs have been exceptional. I've been on the edge of my seat hours every night. So a combination of great series and great players on both sides, that's a big challenge. I did like seeing him in SNL, the commissioner being portrayed, but that's not going to be enough. They have to address that.
So I'm looking over your shoulder, and I'm looking at and doing what not enough people have been doing. That's looking at that court in Orlando at Walt Disney World. I'm gonna give you a circular thought here. So NBA, not the only one, had an alarming viewership metric this past weekend. Triple Crown viewership for the last of the 3 races. Preakness, less than half a year ago. 2.4 million viewers. A year ago was 5.4 million. That's not a good sign for them. In a way, they did not promote well. In a way, it's a Saturday. There's a lot going on. Some college football, a little bit better weather outside for people to go. There are a lot of reasons to think about. But Ari, if we go back to baseball now, baseball, while NBA and another, Triple Crown event fall off dramatically, baseball's holding. Why is that? Why is baseball holding an audience, you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. It could be that they had a shortened season so that the viewership of those games, were higher on average. But what is important is over all of the teams, it's up about 4%, so about break even. But when you drill into the numbers in terms of percentage, the White Sox, Oakland A's, Dodgers are up 150, 184%, which is incredible. And then teams like the Red Sox dropped 54% in viewership. So while the average is steady, you're getting ups and downs for both ends, which is dramatic. I expected it, but when I see it spelled out at the end of the regular season, it's pretty dramatic.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about. With regard to the Triple Crown horse races, the Kentucky Derby in early May traditionally is so much a part of springtime dawning across the Midwest and the East Coast. It's a heritage event. That may account for it being a little bit of fish out of water. That does not account for what's going on in the NBA so much. But now, I want to think about the NBA for a second, because it's trying to do what it can to play fantasy sports, sports betting. And we learned this week an update on what's happened over the last 6 months or so. New Jersey is the best state for sports bettors. In fact, I'll give you the top 5. Pennsylvania, then Colorado. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Indiana, Illinois. And you think, okay, someone's missing there. Las Vegas, Nevada. Nevada's 10th in a recent metric rating most favorable states for sports betting. And that's because in Nevada, you have to register in person for mobile betting accounts. That's all mobile betting driven. Well, speaking of the NFL, a transition. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. And first game postponed because of the virus. The Titans 3-0. They're going to play against Buffalo 4-0 this coming weekend. matchup of two of the NFL's 6 undefeated teams so far. Their game against Pittsburgh rescheduled from last week to later this month. Ari, as you look back to this past weekend, number 4 in the NFL, give me one thing that stood out for you, please.
Yeah, it's related to COVID. So, a couple players, for example, from the Raiders were fined for being caught on camera at a charity event violating the COVID protocols, which we saw, delayed at least one match. So there's only 16 in the season, so each one is extremely important. Darren Waller, Derek Carr. So as a result, the NFL implemented video monitoring of players and hefty fines and public shaming. So now in their facilities, as well as in travel, they're going to be monitor players for compliance. So that's the one thing that was newsworthy.
It's a lot to think about. We haven't even really talked about some of the sporadic challenges in college football as well. So my one thing is 0, as in no losses. Mentioned 6 undefeated teams, 2 already we mentioned. Seattle, Kansas City, Green Bay, and the Steelers are the other undefeated teams. Can you name the winless teams? 4 of them. Let's see. Jets and Giants are easy because they share the same stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Atlanta Falcons off to a really rough start. And then the Texans fired Bill O'Brien because likewise 0-4. Looking ahead, Tom Brady off to a 3-1 start, and they play 3-1 Chicago Bears on Thursday Night Football. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. That's at Chicago, I believe.
Yeah, that'll be exciting at beautiful Soldier Field
On a Thursday night. Yeah,
that'll be. The weather will be great, but it'll be a great matchup. Chicago off to a great start, but a lot of questions here locally of multiple quarterbacks. Who should be starting. Whereas Tom Brady is a no-brainer. He's the quarterback for any team.
Yeah. Well, a couple of final thoughts here. One, the Supreme Court's allowing a class action lawsuit to proceed from minor league baseball, who allegedly being paid less than minimum wage. The one quote, many minor leaguers are still being paid salaries that place them below the federal poverty level. Ari, are you often surprised at how even really good baseball fans don't know that players are not paid for either spring training or minor leaguers for instructs?
Yeah, it's surprising and disappointing that the story, of the minor league struggles is not more well known. Since people generally hear of minor leaguers once they become to the majors, but they're like if I were in charge of a baseball team, your minor leaguers are your lifeblood for your future, and you want them, paid or supported enough that all they're focused on is how can I develop as a player so one day I get to the majors. And if they're worried about food, nutrition, they're even host families where, civilians have a minor leaguer in their home since they can't afford it. That is a distraction for them developing as a player. But yeah, people don't realize not paid for spring training, not paid for instruction, paid fairly little, all relative. And I think that should change.
Yeah. All right, last thought. Yankees have scored at least 9 runs in 3 games or more. That's more than the Jets have scored more runs than points. We'll give Jason Stark credit for that. He always does a good job coming up with really abstract and deep stats that help make sense out of a very unusual time in the sports industry. Well, that'll do it for us this week. Ari, thanks for hanging out.
Thank you, Phil.
You betcha. That's us. AAi, the podcast on analytics and sports, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out.